Week 8 is in the books, and it was a good one, man. It was one of those weeks where it wasn't as good as the other weeks, but there were still some good games. Syracuse at Clemson. Clemson sneaks by again. The refs help them out a little bit. And because of that, I got to wear all Clemson gear next week on the show, I'd assume. And further than that, we have Clay Williams on the show, the man that is making me do it. So we want to welcome him. He's going to join us today to talk some football. I'm excited about this week. I'm excited to debate with Clay about Clemson and just some other things, but it's going to be a fun week.
Yeah, I'm happy to have Clay on. And Clay, you want to introduce yourself and tell you when you started being a Clemson fan and how that happened and all those series of unfortunate events that you've got going on.
Well, first
when your life stopped having meaning.
That's actually fair. Yeah, it's been a pretty depressing season so far. So, no, man. So, I grew up, around Clemson. My family, my dad was hardcore Clemson. He attended Clemson University for a little bit before he went to the Air Force. My whole family is from that area in South Carolina. Just grew up around it, man. So when your whole family roots for Clemson, like you just do it too.
Yeah.
And I wanted, my dream was to go to Clemson one day, and unfortunately it just never worked out. But always been a diehard since I could remember, man. So
yeah, man. Yeah. Ever since we were friends and stuff like that. I mean, me and Clay would go to the tennis courts with a bunch of our friends here, and Clay had so much Clemson gear, it wasn't even funny. Like he had everything. He had one time he had like the Clemson hat on that was all frayed at the top right here, and he had like 2 fish hooks on it. He's like ready to go, all Clemson out every time like that. So Clay's always been a good friend of mine, and I'm glad you're on the show. Finally, we got an opportunity to have you on here and everything like that. But yeah, Clay's one of the realest Clemson fans I know. So
yeah, it's unfortunate too. I've known Clay for the longest. I don't even remember when I met Clay. I was a kid, and it always rubbed me the wrong way as a Clemson fan. But I guess I could see past it for the sake of friendship. But other than that, let's move on. Syracuse at Clemson was the first game this week. It kind of was a 12 o'clock segment. What do y'all think about that game? Kind of where do y'all's thoughts? See, Clemson got by 27-21, but
let me go first, man. It was so bad. It was so ugly. And I remember I posted in the All Talk conference to Aaron. I said, hey man, I'm gonna go and I don't like calling it this early, but I'm gonna go and call it because this looks horrible. Like, I mean, and like I'll even say it, like all season, we're a 2-quarter team, man. And literally our offense was a 1-quarter team. Like this game, our defense came out in the third and fourth. Thankfully, man, if they didn't come out, I mean, we would have easily gotten beat. But no, the ref, that call, the refs helped us. I can agree with that. They should have called the one on Clemson on that sideline push. I was really surprised they actually didn't call that. DJ just, man, he just didn't look comfortable. I don't know what was going on. Dude was just way off. I mean, fumbling on the 1-yard line. And then, 2 interceptions. He wasn't there Saturday.
He looked like he did last year, like in that game.
Yeah.
It's because he played a real defense. That's the reason. He played a real defense.
So let me ask you this, Clay. Go ahead, Clay, if you need to say something.
No, I mean, I don't think Syracuse's defense is like phenomenal. I don't think they're like.
They still gave up
better than what you've played, though. Yeah.
Best so far.
Yeah, definitely better than what we played. I can agree with that. Yeah. So, but I mean, the thing is, DJ though, he had time. I mean, it's not like he didn't have time to throw the ball. He didn't have time to. I mean, he had time to do what he had to do. He just didn't look good doing it. Overthrowing his receivers, underthrowing them, not making the right calls, like when they were doing that run option play. Like he just did not look good. So
I looked at some stuff after that, and I was like, I was watching it with my father-in-law, and I was like, oh man, Cade Klubnik's going to come in. I was like, watch, Randall, they're going to win this game. And sure enough, he comes in. He went 2 for 4 passing and still won the game. But I'm not crediting it to Cade Klubnik. It was that Clemson defense in that second half, man. That defense in that second half was just it's like when Cade came in, guys, that like the whole dynamic, the special teams, the defense, the offense, everything started click. And Will Shipley won that game offensively on the offensive side of the ball for Clemson, but the defense held their own. And I'm crediting Clemson's defense because they were shut down. They were rushing the passer all the time, and the quarterback was under pressure the entire time in that second half. But Syracuse's offense completely stalled out too, and I don't know if that's more so credit to Clemson's offense or more of a discredit to Syracuse's defense. I mean, offense.
It's the mental aspect, though, and that's the thing. Clemson has this hold over teams in the ACC right now. They really do, and it's because they've been dominant for the last 7-8 years. And when it comes down to the wire, the truth is these teams just don't have it in them. It's almost like they're waiting for the other shoe to fall off. And that's what Syracuse got so ultra conservative, so scared that they were going to blow it. And guess what? They ended up blowing it. And they didn't keep the foot on the gas pedal. They didn't keep going like they were going. It almost was like, hey, let's just hold on instead of, hey, let's go out here and win the game. And the reality is you have to go in and you have to keep scoring.
I do agree with that. I do agree with, them putting the foot on the gas and keep going. But our defense did a total 180 in that second half. I mean,
they did.
And the reality,
I agree.
And if you watch that first half, man, we weren't putting pressure really on. We had one drive, maybe two drives, where we put pressure on that quarterback, and he couldn't do anything. But then when we wouldn't put pressure on him, and he was sent back there for 3 to 5 seconds, I mean, our corners are horrible. Our secondary is a joke. I mean, everybody knows that. And if you give them that time to pass that ball, Clemson's defense is going to get exposed every single time.
Yeah, Clemson made them run the ball on them because they knew that was their strength and everything. They wanted them to pass, but that wasn't happening. It wasn't working for them. And that Syracuse running back, they're not a passing team.
Yeah.
So that's what it all boils down to.
So I didn't watch the game live. I was on the golf course, so I had to go back and rewatch the game. And without glancing at any stats, I was like, oh my God, like Clemson just like almost crapped the bed in this game. I went back and looked at the stats and then watched the game. This reminds me of the Georgia-Missouri game where like Clemson just had a terrible game offensively. I mean, you turn the ball over 4 times, you still put up 450 yards of offense, and
they dominated the game statistically.
They dominated the game when it mattered, and I think that's important to recognize here is that Syracuse, even with even as close as the game looked, didn't perform anywhere close enough to win this game. Without the mistakes that Clemson made, Syracuse is not in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, Clemson should have won that game by at least 2 or 3 touchdowns.
The problem is when Syracuse goes up 21-10, though, or 21-7, you've just got to keep on going. And I understand that Clemson wasn't on their A game necessarily, but I think what we're learning is this is Clemson's A game. This is Clemson all year. Like we're sitting here and we're waiting for this big breakthrough. It's not going to happen. This team is going to keep slipping by, and when they get to the playoffs, they are going to get pounded if they get to the playoffs. I think North Carolina could expose them in the ACC championship game with that passing attack, like Wake did. The problem is I don't know that North Carolina has the defense to actually get the upset.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
I think our defense is pretty good, but
yeah.
Because we can make adjustments and that's been shown time and time again. But our offense, to me, is what kills us. It's like nobody's in sync to me.
The offense is what allows these teams to stay competitive in these games against Clemson, because Clemson is giving the ball back constantly, whether it be turnovers or just lack of offensive whatever. You're not. I mean, here they converted plenty. You had 27 first downs, but you're when you're constantly going 3 and out, or you're turning the ball over, it's looking like your defense is terrible because you're constantly giving the ball back and letting the other team with opportunities to score. But Clemson's they always say defense wins championships, but a lack of offense is always going to expose that. And I think Clemson is going to have to either change or they're going to fall on that. They're going to die on that hill before too long.
I think if they just clean it up. I mean, so like you looking at this, like the first half, Clemson had 3 turnovers. Anytime you have that many turnovers in a half, that's going to be bad. And then in the second half, Syracuse had like 10 penalties, and like 2 or 3 of them were on crucial third down plays. And there was one call.
And 2 or 3 of them was crap, too.
Yeah, 2.
That's the thing.
The shove out of bounds of Cade Klubnik
changed the game.
That Cade Klubnik shove out of bounds. And then the same thing is like Syracuse, and I'm sure this is the one you're talking about, Clay. Syracuse's quarterback had the same thing happen, and they didn't call it on them, and it looked worse than the Clemson one.
Yeah.
When that quarterback, and that's the one bad call. I'm like, if you give it to one team, you got to give it to the other team.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with the pass interference on the third down with like 3 minutes to go. It was 3rd and long, and it was critical because it was 24-21 Clemson. They were about midfield. It was 3rd and long. They threw it to the end zone. I just did not think it was pass interference. The ball was thrown up in the midst of multiple players, and everybody was jumping for it, and they threw a flag on Syracuse. It goes to 4th and long. Clemson has to punt the ball away, and Syracuse still had 2 timeouts. But instead, they get the first down. Syracuse has to burn their timeouts. Clemson gets another field goal and goes up 6. That's a game-changing call right there. Not saying Syracuse gets it done, but I'm saying they have a lot more of a chance of getting a field goal in 3 minutes than getting a touchdown in 1 minute. And that's kind of my thing.
But I'll say, like, yeah, okay, going back to that where Clemson pushed their quarterback, out of bounds. Yeah, clear as day. That should have been called. I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
But, the one that was where they tossed the ball up and they called that, I went back and I watched that a few times. And it, to me, yes, it was. And I'm not saying that just because I'm biased on as a Clemson fan, but the guy was holding the other dude's arm down when they jumped up. So,
I mean, but it was a lot of players in the mix, too. They normally don't call that.
I hate hinging it. I get what you're saying. I hate hinging a game off of one call when the game collectively was played so poorly on both sides. Whether it was like, you have tons of penalties, you have tons of turnovers, you have tons of situations where this could have gone this way, bad play calling, what have you. I hate that it comes down to it because typically I want to see I want to point to a play where teams have played so perfect going down the stretch that one call may change it. And you're right, that call could have potentially changed, or it did change the outcome of the game.
Though. Syracuse probably doesn't score.
But it's a different. I don't know. It's just a different mindset, I guess. I try to look at the whole game rather than just one penalty. But sometimes it's hard not to, because especially if you're a fan of that team that it happened to.
What you just said, I couldn't have agreed more, and I couldn't have said it any better than you did, Tyler. That's what it is. That one play didn't cost them the game or cost the other team the game. It was about how the both teams played throughout the game, and both teams played pretty poorly. In their Syracuse second half. Clemson first half. I mean, that's what it all boils down to.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think one call changes a game, but I think if this happened to Georgia, we'd be losing our crap right now. Yeah, that's the thing. So it's like you can say that, but in all reality, like as a Syracuse fan, ultimately though, Clemson was the better football team. That's that. There's no doubt about that. They dominated the game.
I think
that's the reality.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I'm looking at is just the fact that you can look at that as if you're a Syracuse fan, you're looking at this game, you're like, man, if they would have just, if they didn't call this penalty, we'd have this or that. I'm looking at the second half that they didn't score. That's what I'm looking at in terms of what Syracuse was unable to do. And that credit to Clemson's defense there. So I think that's just where I was watching the game.
And before we really quick because I don't want to miss this, but Will Shipley, man, like I feel like a lot of people outside of the ACC just don't pay attention to the dude, man. Yeah. I mean, you guys do, but I mean, the dude is good, man.
Yeah.
Like
we knew he would be.
So yeah. So he didn't get his opportunity last year, and he's getting it now.
Yep.
Well,
he's definitely the difference maker for them this year for sure.
I like Will Shipley, and Clemson deserved to win, but let's turn to another game. Kansas at Baylor. We're not going to talk much about this one. It just stinks. Kansas started so strong, took their third loss. Baylor is just a team that one week looks horrible, then the next looks great. I don't understand them. I expected them to be good. They got the win here. Any thoughts on that game quick?
Kansas fraudulent.
Yeah, I think very quickly they've regressed.
Still 5 wins. They're probably going to get to 6 or 7. So that's still a good year for Kansas. West Virginia, Texas Tech. West Virginia's another team. One week look great. The next week look horrible. They got dominated. 48-10 loss. there's not much to say about that besides I'm disappointed in West Virginia. JT Daniels, man, he went out to West Virginia to be on a sorry team. They need to get rid of their coach. Neil Brown is not the guy. He's got to go. And they might as well try to hire Jim Blow because he's on the way out the door of College Station. Let's bring him back to Country Roads, take him home back to West Virginia where he doesn't have to recruit, where there's no pressure. He wins 8 games. It's fine. But just disappointed in West Virginia. Y'all have any thoughts on that game? It was a dominating game. I mean, there's really not much.
There's not much to say about that. I think JT Daniels, the story of JT Daniels from start to finish is just a sad one. It's just unfortunate. The injuries, the having to transfer multiple times. You just keep putting in terrible situations. It's no fault of his own.
I'm rooting for the man, and I hope that we look back on this, 4 or 5 years from now, and dude is killing it in the NFL, and you look at all the adversity he had to go through from injuries and transfer portals and everything like that. I pray that he's successful in the NFL, but I don't know. Right now, it doesn't look too good.
Yeah.
Hey, he has a natty ring. Then this is a game we're probably going to sit on for a minute. Ole Miss at LSU. Ole Miss was undefeated, and they went to LSU. And last week we had this conversation, and I took LSU in this game. I just felt like it was a strong game. Y'all were pretty heavy on Ole Miss, though. And LSU, though, shocked me. Like, I thought they'd win the game, but they went out there and broke Ole Miss. That was sad. What do y'all think about that game?
So that game, to me, I think we're looking at a situation where there are several teams evolving throughout the season. And I think LSU is one of those right now. LSU is relevant again, and they could beat Alabama close. Brian Kelly is now, we're all talking about Brian Kelly this, Brian Kelly's bad. He's a good fit now. And,
he's always been a good coach.
But I'm telling for the broad spectrum of all the haters.
He's a good regular
there,
season coach.
The fact is that LSU went on a 42-3 run just blows my mind. They completely shut down that Ole Miss offense, and then Ole Miss didn't have an answer for their offense. So, I mean, when you look at this game as a whole, you're just like, man, this LSU-Bama matchup next week is going to be fantastic to watch.
Yeah. And I think we'll definitely talk more about that when we get into playoff talk, because I don't think LSU's out of the picture. They control their own destiny. Not. And, but yeah, I mean, just a dominating game. I'm proud of LSU. I really am. I couldn't believe it. Maybe Ole Miss ain't that good. We'll learn. I think Ole Miss is a good team, though. Texas at Oklahoma State. I think we all thought Texas would win the game. We thought it would be close, and they were up 14 points, and Oklahoma State ended up coming back and winning the game. Did y'all get a chance to watch that one? What are some thoughts on that game?
Quinn Ewers did not play well.
He sucked.
I thought with the Oklahoma State being as banged up as they are that this would be a cakewalk for Texas, but I don't know. Texas isn't back. We said they were back 2 weeks ago. Now they're not.
I didn't think it would be a cakewalk, but I've been saying that all
year. No, I do not like the term back with Texas.
Depends on what back means.
This does answer my question about the whole Manning thing. I think he's still coming. I don't think Ewers is quite as good as we thought he was. Maybe he just had one of those crazy games, but he threw the ball 49 times with 3 interceptions. That's pretty ugly.
Oh, Oklahoma State does have a good defense though, and I think, and we'll talk more when we talk about the playoffs here in a bit, but I think they're a team that's flying under the radar a little bit. I mean, that loss to TCU, they were up 17 points or something like that and ended up losing the game in overtime. And last year they finished the year, they were number 5 in the country in the Big 12 championship. They win that game, they go those 2 yards, they might be a college football playoff team.
Exactly.
I kind of think we've not been talking about them at all when they're actually really good and could win the Big 12 and could get to the college football playoff. But I mean, again, I don't want to get too much into them until we get to the playoff talk. So Mississippi State at Bama. Bama's back. I told everyone was like, I thought it would be closer, but they just straight thumped them.
Last week, it's the scariest thing to play Alabama after a loss. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Scarier than Shark Week.
That's what I was about to say. What's Dustin saying about Shark Week?
It's nothing but scarier than Shark Week than playing Bama after a loss. But Mississippi State shot themselves in the foot. Like Mike Leach, I was questioning his intelligence a little bit. How many times did they go for it on 4th down in their own territory?
A lot.
It was nerve-wracking.
Dude, so he's played Bama 4 times now, and they've only scored, I think, 15 points in those combined 4 games.
9. It's been 90-9.
Right?
Yeah, but they just scored 6. So it's 15 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 120 to 15.
Yeah.
It's sad. But I mean, Bama is Bama. we thought they'd win. I didn't think they'd roll like that, but they did. Minnesota, Penn State dogged them out. They bounced back. Granted, Minnesota was without their starting quarterback, but Morgan sucks anyway, so I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Yeah, he's not the quarterback I thought he could be.
The boat got a hole in it, and it's sinking.
Quick.
It's okay. Hey, Penn State got themselves a nice win before they take this giant L next week. It's okay.
I don't know about that, man. I think they match up well with Ohio State.
Oh, gosh.
What'd you say, Dustin?
I said, oh, God, it ain't happening. It ain't happening.
We've been talking about this all day.
But y'all are saying this, but I want you to go back and look at that game. It's always a close game. It's not. And it comes down to the wire, especially when it's at Happy Valley. And thing with Ohio State is they could be the greatest team in the world, or they might not be that good. We don't know yet.
They might not be. Anybody. I mean, last year was kind of the same story. They looked great until they played a decent team, and then they got boat raced.
Yes.
So. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's
not
impossible.
even close.
I think it's just fun to poke at your Penn State. You've been talking about this game since before the season started. So
they got to win now. I mean, I got to stick with them because I've been talking.
You've been hyping this up more than I hyped up FSU.
Texas A&M at South Carolina. South Carolina got the upset, 30-24. Ultimately, they were in control of that whole game. Jim Blow sucks. Yeah, we all took South Carolina. Everyone laughed at us, too, for taking South Carolina. And then they went out there and were up 17-0 5 minutes into the game. And it's like, I told you.
So this is for Clay. Clay, how do you feel about playing South Carolina here soon?
I knew that question was coming. and I can go and tell you I'm not worried about South Carolina.
Okay.
You should be. You should be.
No,
I mean, dude, y'all should be worried about everybody.
South Carolina is below average, so I'll give that to them. We're average; they're below average.
Hey, I think Texas A&M is a terrible football program right now. So
they're horrible.
It's the appearance. It makes South Carolina look scary, but in reality, I don't think that they can handle Clemson's defense. But we'll see later on.
They are 5-2 guys, and they could.
Yeah, I mean,
they play Missouri, Vandy, and Florida the next 3 games, dude. That's 3 wins. They're going to be 8-2, ranked like 13 or 14 in the country. What?
Exactly.
The Tennessee game.
They better not be playing Florida in the swamp.
If Tennessee takes a fat L to Georgia and possibly Kentucky, South Carolina will beat Tennessee too. Watch. South Carolina could be 9-2 going into the Clemson game.
When is the last time we've had
agree to that one?
When is the last time we've had a Clemson and South Carolina team both ranked in that matchup? It's been a long freaking time, dude.
Probably like 2014, 13.
I don't know if South Carolina will be ranked by then, unfortunately.
Dude, who are they going to lose to besides Tennessee?
They're playing at Florida. I don't know.
Florida sucks.
Florida does beat Florida. Florida does suck.
Yeah, they'll beat Florida. Don't
boat race Florida is your expression.
That's hard. That's hard for me to go ahead and defend them for that.
I don't know, man. I think Texas A&M is going to beat Florida too. Like
even then, I think even with the loss to Tennessee, I think they probably could drop. They might drop out of that top 25 with a loss to Tennessee.
No way, a loss to a top 10 team.
It'll be a bad loss.
They're going to be ranked in. They're going to be. I don't think so, though, man. Not if Tennessee gets whooped by Georgia. Their spirit's going to be gone.
No, I don't think so. They're still playing for something.
Hey, they're going to lose to Kentucky this weekend too, so it's going to be back to back.
Tennessee, think about that. Tennessee. I mean, that's a conversation for playoff talk. But if Tennessee, a loss to Tennessee or a loss to Georgia for Tennessee isn't the end of the world for them.
No, it's not.
It's actually probably the best thing that can happen to them. But regardless, I don't think a South Carolina team's coming close to that. And that being said, that Clemson South Carolina game, I don't know if it'll be as big as we want it to be.
I think South Carolina will be ranked like 20 or so, and Clemson will be ranked like
maybe
8 when they lose to somebody. I'm just kidding, Clay.
I knew that was coming again. But look,
Clemson's
the
not
thing
losing.
is about that the thing about Clemson, South Carolina, Clemson always plays South Carolina differently every time. So that's why I'm kind of like, yeah, okay.
You know, I had the Notre Dame game penciled for Clemson, but Notre Dame's terrible.
I don't know, man. Notre Dame's hot or cold, though. Like, they look good one week, then terrible the next. I don't know what the heck's up with them. Clemson's going to whoop them, though.
Needless to say, I'm not picking against Clemson the rest of this year until playoff.
Like I said, they're going to be in the playoff by default. I don't see them losing.
I got Notre Dame and Louisville.
me and Aaron ran through a scenario, and Clay's gonna love this. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Aaron and I were talking. We're like, so what if Clemson wins out and they play South Carolina, they lose to South Carolina, they still get the ACC championship undefeated, and then they lose the ACC championship? And
I will say this though. One loss keeps Clemson out of the playoff, in my opinion.
I think so.
I don't think they get in if they lose a game.
Yeah,
I really don't.
I
I think they have to go undefeated because their schedule at the end of the year, I know it looks good now, but at the end of the year, Syracuse isn't going to be ranked. NC State's not going to be ranked. South Carolina's not going to be ranked. The only ranked team they're going to have beat at the end of the year is Wake Forest.
Yep.
And so anyway, let's move on to Kansas State at TCU. We'll talk more about them in a second. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. The Brandon Burns at TCU, man.
Brandon messaged me in like the first quarter, and he's like, "You watching this game?" Like, yes,
me
too.
Me too.
Yes, sir.
Tyler, you quit on TCU.
I did quit on TCU. I quit watching that game. So I went to do something else for a little bit. Came back, and I was like, "What happened?" They turned the game back. Like they turned themselves back on. Like 21 points in the second half.
I'm like, this game's over. And then right before I was about to turn that game off, I saw where like all these comebacks that TCU have had this year. And then I'm like, it ain't happening this time. I'm done. I'm going to bed.
Dude,
and then I wake up and I'm like, what the crap happened? I need to quit going to bed because I keep getting shocked with all these.
I mean, I'll tell you on this one, man, TCU, that's part of their game plan. As David White put out there, that stat where they have 9 players running over 21 mile per hour against Oklahoma, and there's only 3 in the entire NFL. It reigns so true, and you can see it the way they play, because in the first half and even into the third quarter, the defenses are keeping up with them. They're playing pretty solid. They're holding them down. But then in the fourth quarter, it's like they are just running up and down the field, and no one can guard them because the defense is so tired. They're just rotating.
They wear them down.
And I don't know that TCU loses, man. They might be a college football playoff team. I mean, me and Tyler put them in our playoff. We thought it was a stretch, but every week it gets closer. And
I don't think they're going to lose. I don't think they're going to lose.
Oklahoma State could get them in the Big 12 championship. That's the only one.
It just keeps.
I think they lose one. I don't know who.
Not in the regular season.
No, they play West Virginia, Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor, and Iowa State. They run that schedule.
Then Oklahoma State probably in the Big 12 title. That would be a tough one. But UCLA at Oregon. Oregon straight beat the brains in. I mean, the Oregon pick for the playoff, Dustin, is looking good right now. Because
Let's go. I went in. I told you guys.
Man.
He said big.
I said
big.
Y'all both said I was crazy for taking that.
For the big, for sure.
I'm like,
oh yeah, I thought you gosh.
Were.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, Oregon is a different team, especially at home. I mean, they're awesome right now. I don't see how they're not going to make the playoffs. They've got to make the playoffs.
I think they're going to rematch UCLA in the Pac-12 title on a neutral site, and I think UCLA will be ready this time. I really do. I'm still taking the Bruins, man. USC can do it too. Yeah, I think in a rematch they're going to get them. I think they started to figure it out at the end of the game.
I'm no longer picking against Oregon.
But here's the thing, guys. How many games do we see where something just clicks all game long, and it's like, wow, that doesn't happen often, though. I mean, there's no way they go and do that again to them. If Georgia played Oregon again, do you think we'd beat them like we did?
I'd be concerned. I think we'd win, but I'd be concerned.
Everything went right in that game, though, for us. Our offense clicked in every way. Same thing for Oregon against UCLA. I think it was an outlier. Do I think Oregon's the better team right now? Yes, definitely. But I do think that's going to be a good matchup if it plays out in the Pac-12 title. Just because Chip Kelly's a good coach. As much as I don't like him, he's a good coach.
I thought you were saying that Oregon was a better team than Georgia. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
No.
I was like, I'm gonna let you finish your sentence before I say anything, just to make sure.
let me give credit to young Dan Lanning here. So in the second quarter, they go for that onside kick. I'm like, dude, is he serious right now? And I'm thinking about like why he did this. And I was thinking at first, I thought, like, he's doing this because he knows it's going to be a shootout. He's trying to gain another possession so he can get ahead of him. But it was really another thing comes in. He's like, did the dude know the weather report? And they're like, we're going to try to get up a score, and then we're going to make UCLA try to run the ball because they're going to have to pass in the rain. I don't know. It was amazing, though. That was the best call I've seen from a coach all season, is taking that onside kick right there.
It's just the young coaching.
He goes up 24-10, though, at that point.
But that's my thing. I guess that's why I look at it. They came out and they put their foot on their throat, and I just don't think it will happen again. They're either going to play UCLA, USC, or Utah in the Pac-12 title, and also I think they have Utah on their schedule. They got to get through them in the regular season. Is that at Utah? Does anyone know?
It's at Utah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know that they get out a lot. They might not even get to the Pac-12 title, honestly. So we'll see. Them. I mean, I'd say they're getting there. It's going to be tough, though. But anyway, so great week of football. I think Oregon was the most impressive team. I'm going to have to agree with Dustin on that. But let's kind of move on. We're going to go around the country. We're going to check in with our fans and kind of see. We only have 2 reports this week. One Florida fan's going to give us their college football playoff picks. Then we got a Kansas State fan also giving their playoff picks. Maybe put Kansas State in there. We'll find out. Let's kick it to Brandon and Josh real quick, and then we'll come back with you and we'll talk about them.
Hey guys, Joshua here. I'm going to give my college football predictions for the Final Four. I'll make this quick for the top 3 because it's pretty easy. Number 1 is going to be Georgia, undefeated SEC champs. Number 2 is Ohio State, undefeated Big Ten champs. Number 3 is going to be Clemson, the undefeated ACC champs. And number 4 is tough. There's about 10 teams that could really be there, but I'm just going to go on a gut feeling and try to pick one that maybe not be chalk. I'm going to go with UCLA, undefeated Pac-12 champs. So there you have it. There's the top 4. Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, and UCLA. Thanks.
I'm going to give you my Final Four pick. I think it's going to be the same way as I predicted in the preseason. Just a little opposite order because I think things are going to play out this way. I think my first team is going to be Ohio State. I don't think they're the best team in the country yet. I don't know, but I still think they're going to go undefeated. Number 2, I got Clemson. Because Clemson's they're okay. But I know I agree with you guys on the show. I don't think they're great, but I think they've been pretty lucky. I think their luck will continue. Because I really don't see the ACC no one beating them. Even though North Carolina's all right offense, but they got no defense. And I think number 3 is going to be Alabama. 4 is going to be Georgia. Because I think they're going to play each other in the SEC championship. I think Alabama will beat Georgia. Because that's just the way it is sometimes. But I don't agree with TCU. I know what y'all saying, but the Big 12 is going to beat each other up. The Pac-12 will too. That's my Final Four pick.
And come on, Brandon Burns. You always just pick the top 4 teams in the country at the time. Clemson. Come on, they barely beat Syracuse when you're saying they're going to the college football playoff. This is a joke, dude. No way.
Oh, no.
The
So I'm going to leave the
going
show
down.
now. I'm going to go ahead and leave the show now. I'm going to stop following the show. No, I'm actually, okay, as crazy as that is, I'm with you, Aaron. No way Clemson's number 2. Okay, that's
yeah. If Clemson's in there, Clemson's a solid 4. That's the only way I can put them in 4. Yeah.
Even a one-loss team might be in front of them if they're undefeated. Like I hate to say that.
No, an undefeated Clemson. Undefeated Clemson's by default.
Winning big. Yeah, no, I'm saying that could be ranked in front of them. I think they're in no matter what if they go undefeated.
Okay,
yeah,
I understand.
But I think they're going to be at 4 no matter what, maybe 3, but we'll see. And Ohio State obviously is a good pick. I think Michigan's going to beat them though, but that's kind of just my opinion. I really don't have enough data on them yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get
I agree with you, Aaron. Michigan.
I agree with all those picks from Brandon, except that the Alabama pick.
Yeah,
just because I think Alabama's going to lose another one and be done.
I don't know, man.
Alabama will not be in the college football playoffs this year. You can go ahead and book it, write it down.
I'm worried. It scares me when we say something like that because we get proven wrong all the time.
Not this year.
As a Georgia fan, I'm scared because last year, dude, we looked more dominant by a lot. We thought we were going to kill Bama. They went out there and thumped us in the SEC championship.
Yeah, Alabama's defense is way worse this year than they were last year. Way worse.
I think
light years worse.
But we had games last year where we thought the same thing. Like, where it was
am I saying?
Yeah, but
am I saying that Georgia goes out there and just destroys Alabama? No, I'm simply saying that Georgia wins that game and Alabama is not in the playoffs this year.
I think Georgia's just too balanced for Bama. Bama seems like they're all just all over the place to me.
Yeah, there's no consistency.
I don't. Yeah,
it seems like Bama wins because of Bryce Young.
Yeah.
The mistakes. The mistakes, the penalties, those things don't go away. They don't just magically disappear. You're not the worst team in the country in penalties for no reason.
And they still had a ton of penalties last week against Mississippi State.
Yeah,
I don't know the total number on that, but
it was still up there. They're still ranked pretty high in penalties.
But
Tennessee though has a better shot. Wrong way. Tennessee has a better shot than Bama does to make the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yes, they do.
Because I think Tennessee could lose to Georgia and run. I don't think they will, but I think they could. As to Bama still has to play Georgia in the SEC title, which would get them out of there. We'll see.
Yeah, Alabama is still ranked 127th in the country
in penalties. Just overall,
that's
they're
something
127.
to be happy about. Yeah.
There's only 4 teams worse. Houston, Cincinnati, UMass, and Syracuse.
Cincinnati, that's surprising.
Syracuse is the worst team in the country.
Syracuse is in there? Oh, that's even more.
Yeah, it's because the refs literally just pulled extra flags out against
They're the most penalized team in the country, and they average, I think, 9.8 penalties a game.
What were they last week, though? I mean, they had like 40 penalties this week, so it made their average look bad.
They had 10 in the second half.
All right, so then
10 penalties, yeah.
Let's move on to Josh. Josh said he had UCLA in there. We all agree with Georgia, I think. We all think Georgia's in, and then we all think Ohio State or Michigan's. And he said Ohio State, though, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Ohio State.
And who was his third?
Clemson.
Yeah, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, UCLA. And it makes sense. I mean, we think about UCLA already having the loss. Of course, he made this list before the games.
Before the game, yeah.
So with UCLA having a loss, it's still viable. I mean, UCLA wins out, and they win the championship, then yes, that is very viable. And a one loss would definitely be below an undefeated Clemson. So that list still makes sense to me, even though he made it beforehand. So
I agree with that.
I'm not totally against it. I think UCLA is still a good pick.
I think UCLA could make it, but I'm kind of with Dustin. And I threw around Oregon or UCLA. And I didn't necessarily – I picked UCLA to win the game because they were my playoff team, but I didn't necessarily think – I didn't know that they would win right there. I thought if they lost, they'd lose to Oregon in that game and then win out and get a rematch. But now I still think they could win a rematch, but the way Oregon handled them, I don't know. I'd lean more towards Oregon, but I'm going to stick with my picks because I already made them. So I got to ride UCLA high all the way through. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun finish to the season. But Clay, you sent in a video, but now that you're on the show, just tell us your Final Four, and we'll kind of talk about them for a second.
Yeah, I'm going to go with UGA number 1. I think they're going to pummel Tennessee. So I'm going to put UGA number 1. Number 2, I'm actually going to go with Michigan. I think they're going to beat Ohio State. So I'm going to go with that. Number 3, I'm going to go with TCU. I like them. You know, Aaron, you and I were texting a couple of days ago about them, and I started watching them today, and I'm like, oh man, like where? It's coming out of nowhere, dude. And then obviously I got to go with Clemson number 4. So
yeah, I could see it. All of them, I could see that. That's a very valid Final Four because I do think it's Michigan or Ohio State out of the Big Ten.
Yeah. At this point, I'm just wanting the Big 12 to cannibalize himself, and I hope it happens.
I want Illinois to win out and win the Big Ten so bad.
Oh God!
Oh, I would do that. I'm all for that.
That would be awesome. But so, guys, I just the first playoff rankings come out next Tuesday, and obviously we're talking about this before this weekend's game. So we do have to consider there's a weekend of games, and next week we're going to come on live and kind of watch the rankings together, and we're going to do our show live next week. But where do y'all think it sits? Because right now Georgia and Ohio State are 1, 2, Tennessee's 3, Michigan's 4, Clemson's 5, TCU 6, and so on. After that, who cares? So how do you think those top 6 will mix up? Because in my mind, do we think that it's Tennessee at number 1 and Georgia at number 2? Or if Tennessee gets through Kentucky, which is a big if, because I think Kentucky does present a lot of issues to Tennessee. Tennessee probably gets out alive, but it's going to be close. Does Tennessee, if they win this weekend, take the number 1 spot and Georgia the number 2 spot? Or what are our thoughts on this?
I think it stays exactly like the AP poll has here. And it's because there's so much at stake. Right now, you've got a Clemson and Alabama team on the 5 and 6 spot right now. Alabama's still in.
You mean 6, 5 and 6? Oh, because TCU
5 and
7.
6.
Yeah,
TCU 7 and TCU, and to add that into the equation, TCU, and then Oregon's right behind them at 8. So starting off those 5, 6, 7, and 8 spots right there, and you can even go as far as say Oklahoma State and USC, but I'm not getting that far in depth with it. But those teams are the ones that can easily sneak in, and I think you've got to leave Georgia where they're at because that win against Oregon is so impressive, and they played everyone pretty good with the exception of the Kent State game, which was, I think, a fluke. The Missouri game, that was just a letdown where you're just not getting up for the game. Ohio State hasn't played down to their competition. They're blowing out teams. Have not played anyone yet.
But Ohio State will not stay number 2 unless they beat Penn State like 63-3. There's no way they're in front of Tennessee. They just hadn't played anybody.
I think you can put Tennessee maybe in that second spot and have Georgia at 1. I don't see Georgia dropping any. I think it's going to be Georgia because of the best win, because of Oregon, what Oregon's resume is.
Tennessee has the best win. Alabama. You're forgetting that.
No, I would put Tennessee 1 over UGA.
Tennessee 1.
I would put Tennessee at 1 because at that point they will have wins over, I think, 5 ranked opponents and a number 3 team. I think that the coaches are probably looking at this and the committee is looking at this as well. Reason being is because some of their minds may say, okay, they may lose to Georgia, but if you do that, you put them at 1, they lose to a number 2 Georgia or wherever you want to put Georgia after this. You run the scenario of one-loss Tennessee being almost a shoe-in for that 4th spot for not making the conference championship if Georgia wins.
Sure,
so
that's a good point.
They're setting it up to have another big, to make Tennessee relevant again. Even though I don't think they're one of the best teams in the country, resume-wise, yes, they deserve to be at that 1 spot if they win over Kentucky this week. It just makes sense to me.
I would go Tennessee 1, Georgia 2. And we have to watch Penn State, Ohio State this week. And I seem to think that game's going to be really close. And if Ohio State gets out alive, they're obviously going to be in the top 4. But if they beat Penn State bad, then they'll probably be at 3. But if it's a close game, Michigan will be at 3, in my opinion. Ohio State will be at 4. Then I think beyond that, I think TCU will be at 5 and Clemson 6. I think they're going to be a little higher on TCU. TCU's been pretty impressive. How many ranked opponents has TCU beat this year? I know it's been 3 in the last 3 weeks. So I don't know. And then Clemson's also beat 3 ranked opponents. Unless Syracuse this week gets beat up on by Notre Dame, and then NC State loses to Virginia Tech, which could happen. That would knock them both out of the top 25. That's going to be a big hit to Clemson. But Clemson might be up there.
I think you have to look at current ranked teams more so than when they were ranked when you played them.
Well, I don't think so. I think you can try to say,
both.
You have to really look at what the teams were when they played them. I really do, and I didn't always think that way. And sure, teams do fall off as they go. It's hard to tell early in the season because of last year's ratings or rankings, and
what
they
I'm
kind of
getting
factor
at,
in.
What I'm getting with that is that it holds more value, the current ranked teams versus the teams that are no longer ranked. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, it still matters.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that when you're looking at a resume, and people have said this before, when a team gets beat, a ranked team gets beat, and they're like, oh man, they just start to fall off, they start to play bad. I think you can't really take the credit away from a team for beating a ranked team at the time just because that team fell off and lost motivation or whatever you want to call it.
So I'm gonna go back, Aaron, to what you said. I think it was like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago to Dustin about people picking because of the brand name. And I really think that I don't think Ohio State should be in the top 4. I think the only reason why they're in there is because, they haven't shown mercy to their people, but it's a brand name.
Yeah.
And I think
why is TCU 7? TCU 7 exactly. And they're undefeated.
Yeah.
And they've played good teams. Ohio State's played nobody. And they're number 2 in the country.
Well, I think that's the biggest part of that is the AP coach, the coaches poll is just so. I mean, Clemson got a first place vote this week. I mean, let's be honest. Like, Dabo needs to check.
That was Dabo.
that was Dabo 100%,
dude. Or Syracuse's coach might have put him at number 1. I don't know.
That being said, it is one of those things that's hard for people to justify for Ohio State because really, when you start talking about like Tennessee, for instance, we're making an argument for them to be number 1 because of the teams that they're going to beat or have beaten. And then you're looking at Ohio State like, okay, you haven't beat any ranked teams. Okay, so you haven't even played a ranked team for that matter, past or present. So at this point,
every team they've played has been horrible, dude.
Right.
They've not played a team with a winning record except Toledo.
Right. So it's hard as somebody who's not an Ohio State fan looking into that and going, okay, how the heck can these coaches – they're voting it because of name, brand, and consistency. Like they're consistently there because of their team, being in the playoffs or win national championships or whatever.
And we can't even see that Iowa game as even a quality win. They had 6 turnovers in that game. The game was – they're like, we're like, oh, Iowa's got the best defense. I'm like, well, Ohio State scored 54 points on it. I'm like, yeah, because Iowa had 6 turnovers in that game. Anytime you have 6 turnovers in that game, the other team's going to blow you out.
Yeah.
So Iowa's not a good team at all.
So, I would say that there's a big battle. I think if Tennessee beats Kentucky, Tennessee will be number 1. I do think it's between Georgia and Tennessee for that 1 spot, though. Then I think the 3 and 4 spot, even though I'm with Clay on this. I don't think Ohio State deserves it, but I think they're going to be fighting with Michigan for 3 and 4 spots. And then I think the 5 and 6 spots are going to be a war between TCU and Clemson. And that's kind of it. But here's my thing, guys. Let's just say, and this is a who deserves it more, let's just say that, Georgia beats Tennessee and then they go to the conference title and lose to Bama. Bama has 1 loss. Tennessee has 1 loss. Georgia has 1 loss. Let's just say TCU has 1 loss. They slip up somewhere but win their conference, or Oklahoma State, one of the 2. And then further than that, so they're conference champion. Then let's just say UCLA wins their conference with 1 loss. I guess my thing is you have multiple teams, but who deserves to be in the playoffs? Like
I
when
think
it
you
comes
have
down
to
to
give
multiple 1-loss teams, who deserves it?
I think you have to give it to the conference champion at that point.
Yeah,
I don't see any other way.
You're not going to put 3 SEC teams in the playoffs. No chance. I wish it was. That would be cool, but it's not going to happen.
We'll get that soon.
So you're thinking
will happen right now.
So y'all are thinking that you roll with Clemson, TCU, Ohio State, and then the 4th conference, Georgia, Alabama.
I think so. I think you forced the committee's hand by pushing out those other 2 teams because one, they didn't win their conference and they didn't win. Yes, I think they're probably better than some of those other teams. Yes, but I think that you have to, as a committee, you have to be fair to a point to award teams for winning their conferences or succeeding in their seasons, whereas these other teams, just because they play in the SEC and play, more difficult schedules than some of these, it doesn't necessarily mean that they deserve a spot in the playoffs. That expansion will rectify all that.
So let me take you one further. Let's just say that Georgia, Michigan, and Clemson go undefeated. And then TCU and UCLA, or we'll say Oregon in this scenario, TCU and Oregon both go 12-1 and win their conference. Who deserves to be in the playoff?
Who were those first 3 teams that you said undefeated? Georgia, Clemson, and who?
Georgia, Clemson, and Michigan or Ohio State, one of the 2. So Georgia, Michigan, Clemson, they're in for sure.
Yeah.
Who gets the 4th spot? A 12-1 Oregon that won their conference, or a 12-1 TCU that won their conference?
They'll look at
TCU.
Yeah, they'll look.
I'm going with TCU too.
They'll look at at that point. They'll look at resume and the teams that they've beat. Now, I will say that there's a chance that they might look at Oregon's loss to Georgia and be like, okay, that was just first game of the season with a new coach. Things weren't quite that way. They may write off that game completely and not add it in there. They may look at the resume after the fact. But if you're going to be a committee, you're going to be consistent. You're going to have to pick TCU for the teams that they played and beat.
No, I agree. And then let's just throw Clemson though in there. Let's just say Clemson slips up to Notre Dame or South Carolina and they're 12-1. Now you've got 2 spots for 3 teams. Does Clemson get left out and you put Oregon and TCU in?
I think they're going to start looking at quality wins. I think that's going to be hard for Clemson to pull off. I think
and the losses.
Yeah,
Oregon wins that battle with Clemson, and so would TCU.
Yeah, that's where whatever formula the committee has made to determine quality wins and losses for their picks, that's what it's going to end up being.
And last one before we move into our picks. So we're talking about. Let's just say that North Carolina wins out and beats Clemson in the ACC championship.
Mm-hmm.
They're 12-1, and we're now throwing North Carolina into that scenario with those 3 teams. Does North Carolina get a bid in there? They just beat Clemson. a very highly rated team. Clemson would be like number 2 in the country, number 3 in the country at the time.
Yeah, I think you're going to take a one-loss ACC champion. I don't
over a Pac-12 or Big 12 champ because you only can put 2 out of the 3 in.
So you're hypothetically saying there's the 2 undefeated, say Georgia, Ohio State / Michigan, and then Pac-12.
So you got Georgia. Yeah. So then the Pac-12 has 1 loss, Oregon, 1 loss, TCU, and then in this scenario, we just said we take Oregon and TCU over Clemson, but would we take Oregon and TCU over North Carolina, considering that they just beat Clemson, the number 3 team, because Clemson will be 12-0. You get what I'm saying?
No, I don't think. I think you have to give that to North Carolina. Yeah, I think you have to.
I think the same thing too. I think.
Well, remind me that loss that North Carolina had. It was Notre Dame. How bad was that, though?
It was a close game.
It was a couple touchdowns. I think they lost by a couple touchdowns.
I can't remember that game.
I think you'd have to look at that a little bit more closely and then determine it based off the losses that each team may have.
It was
but that's tough,
45 to 32.
Yeah, but it was worse than that. But they're just going to look at the score. They're not going to remember all the details. The score really will be the factor. They lost by 2 touchdowns.
It depends on how they beat Clemson. Like, do you beat Clemson by a field goal or do you beat Clemson by 3 touchdowns? If you beat Clemson by 3 touchdowns, absolutely.
You're in, yeah. I'm saying 56-49 in a shootout. They beat them. There's no way they're blowing them out. I still think I don't see how you leave North Carolina out after they just beat the number 2 or number 3 team in the country, because that's where Clemson would be. I don't. Oregon would be playing.
I have a feeling that it's not going to play out that way for the ACC. I feel like with the ACC, you're going to have a situation where either if Clemson doesn't win it, the other scenario is North Carolina loses to Wake Forest, and then Clemson, or they beat Clemson, and then you have a 1-loss Wake Forest sitting in the wings. I feel like it is a potential to play out that way, but I don't see Clemson falling through the cracks here. I don't think North Carolina is quite as good as their 6-1 record.
But I mean, I think their schedule. I think they're going to lose to Wake Forest too. But they get past Wake Forest. And Wake Forest will be a top 10 team.
Yeah,
will be a top 10 team when they play them, and then they beat Clemson.
Yeah.
You're talking about 2 top 10 wins in the last 3-4 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys,
these next 3 weeks, chaos is gonna ensue worse and worse.
I'm here for it. I can't wait.
It's good to talk about, and we could talk about who deserves it all day in the playoffs more. And we'll talk more next week when the actual playoff rankings come out. But for now, we're going to go into our picks, and we're going to talk about who we think is going to win this week quick. We're not going to take too long on them, but we definitely want to say who we think is going to win the games, each of these.
All right, so we got the top list here. Cancel that. Cut that out. I screwed up right there.
The top list.
It's the list.
Just say we got our picks.
All right, we got our picks going here. All right, first game up on Thursday night. We got Utah and Washington State. Who you guys got?
Utah big.
Yeah,
I agree.
Utah.
The Utes.
All right, next game. We've got Arkansas at Auburn.
Auburn.
I agree. I think Auburn's going to pull it out.
I don't want to pick either team.
I don't either. I'm gonna go with Auburn. I'll go with Auburn.
It's at Auburn. That's why I say Auburn.
Yeah, let's just go Auburn. I would love for Arkansas to right the ship. I don't see it happening.
All right. We got Oklahoma, Iowa State.
I'm going to go with Iowa State on this one. I think Iowa State's defense is too good, and they're going to throw Oklahoma off their game. We've noticed when Oklahoma gets down and out, they are horrible. So I think the Iowa State creates too much chaos for them.
I agree with that.
I'm going to pick Oklahoma.
I'll go with Iowa.
I'm going to be the outlier here.
All right, next one,
Spooners.
Miami.
The Spooners.
Spooners. All right, Miami's got to win one. They beat Virginia.
No.
Virginia.
No.
All right.
Why are we talking about this game, dude? Miami, after having 8 turnovers, we should not talk about them anymore. Like, the fact that you said this game ticks me off. They're horrible.
They're bad.
They need to fire their coach. It's his first season.
They're bad.
Mario Cristobal, what are you doing,
He doesn't
dude?
know.
You should have stayed at Oregon. Your boy at Oregon now is going to make the college football playoff, and you're freaking 3-4.
He tried to get RG3 to come back. That's about all he's got.
Oh, come on, man.
All right, next game. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Both ranked matchup in the Big 12, guys.
Oklahoma State.
That's a tough one.
No.
Does Kansas State have is Adrian Martinez going to play?
I think so.
Probably. No,
I think so.
Oklahoma State.
Where are they playing at?
At Kansas
State.
I'm going with Kansas State.
I'm with Clay. I'm going with Kansas State. I think that if they have Adrian Martinez, they'll bounce back. Last week against TCU, they had injuries like galore in that game. So I think they're a pretty good team.
I would take Kansas State, but it seems like every time I pick against Oklahoma State, they win. So I'm taking Oklahoma State. Maybe they'll lose.
My irrational reasoning is that Ricky Fowler's playing good golf right now, so I'm going to go with Oklahoma State.
Okay. Cincinnati at UCF.
UCF.
I'm Cincinnati. UCF looked terrible.
Cincinnati. Yeah. Cincinnati.
For 1 week, man, UCF's look good in the other weeks. You're the one that said they're a high school. Cincinnati's a high school football team.
Yeah, but UCF looks like a middle school football team.
It's at UCF. It's at UCF.
It doesn't matter. Have you ever been to UCF? That place is not as cool as it seems to be. Cincinnati.
It seems pretty cool on TV.
Yeah, I know on TV it looks rock.
It's just that national championship banner. It's don't pay attention to that.
Isn't that the name? Yeah. Did they win the Natty a few years back?
They claimed it.
Yeah, I'm going with the 2017 national champions to get the win over Cincy.
Yeah. It's like declaring bankruptcy.
If we look at one game, though, yeah, UCF looked bad, but they got it going on in the other game. So whatever. That one's that's either or for me. I don't really care. Anyway, next
Cincinnati.
game.
All right, next game, Ole Miss at Texas A&M.
Ole Miss.
Bro. Why are we even talking about Texas A&M?
Because it's like to get you round up.
Miami and Texas A&M literally played for the worst two Power 5 teams. Miami's the worst one. Texas A&M is the second to worst. Come on, man. A&M is about to get mud stomped. We're talking like 42-10. Ole Miss is pissed. They are about to thump them boys. Jim Blow, you need to get out of town and go back to West Virginia.
Isn't it wild that Ole Miss is only a 2.5-point favorite?
Oh, man, I love A&M. They have a love affair with A&M. I don't get it.
That's tough.
All right, so we're all taking Ole Miss. All right, Baylor at Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Big.
Texas Tech.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the two big games this week. Let's start off with Kentucky at Tennessee, guys.
Hold on, did we do Florida, Georgia?
I didn't think we needed to. We'll do it.
Georgia. Who you got?
Dogs.
Well, see, I think Napier brings back the clown, and they get some kisses coming off the bus, and I think they end up still losing, but it's okay.
Hey, I'm going with it's going to be Georgia bad, probably like 55-3. It's going to be ugly. Their defense is horrible.
Are they playing in Georgia?
Jacksonville.
It
needs to be home and home.
Don't even bring that up, Clay. You're going to get us riled up, bro.
I'm going with Florida. That's going to be my upset.
Hi.
Okay. That's your upset. Oh my!
That's fair.
Hey,
That's fair.
Clemson versus the bye. I'm taking the bye.
Look, I was literally waiting for that, man. I had that hyped up in my head for 5 minutes and you just ruined it. We all know Georgia's going to win, but I'm just throwing Florida out there so I can get you on blood pressure medicine by Monday or Tuesday.
Got to.
Dude, I'm trying to come off of it right now. You want to get me back on?
Oh, man.
So Kentucky at Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I'm taking – Aaron's not speaking. Usually he's jumping right into this, but he's waiting till the end because he's got a huge point to make. I'm taking Tennessee. Who do you got, Clay?
I'm going with Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Look, guys, this whole Tennessee hype is unrealistic, man.
It is.
Alabama played horrible. It was at Tennessee. They got the win. And I'll tell you this, I didn't think Kentucky would beat Tennessee until I watched Kentucky play Mississippi State and straight shut them down. And I know Bama shut Mississippi State down too. But Kentucky beat them up the week before is part of the issue. Kentucky has the secondary to actually contend. Kentucky's defense is one of the best in the SECs from front to back. And I think Levis is going to tear that defense up and Chris Rod's going to run the ball. I'm taking Kentucky close. Wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee wins the game. And I want Tennessee to win for the simple fact I want them to be ranked number 1 in the country coming to Athens. I don't think it will happen, though. I think that a week earlier than people expect, Tennessee ends up blowing it. Just my thoughts.
I don't think Kentucky can score enough with Tennessee. That's my problem.
That's what I'm.
And I know you're high on their defense.
Tennessee's got a bad offense. Bad defense.
I know you're high on their on Kentucky's defense, but I don't think that it's going to matter.
Tennessee has the 129th worst passing defense in the country.
No, I don't doubt that. Tennessee has a terrible defense. I 100% agree with you. I am completely on board with thinking that Tennessee is overhyped, 100%. But I don't think Kentucky's a good football team. So there's that.
I disagree. I think Kentucky's pretty good. They slipped up to Ole Miss. They should have won that game. And honestly, if they beat Ole Miss, they beat South Carolina. They're undefeated right now. But they blew a game they shouldn't have.
You're just picking Kentucky because me and Dustin both picked Tennessee to be really good this year, and you picked Kentucky. And here we are.
I just think that it's a good matchup. It's at Tennessee, though, so that's kind of what worries me.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Rocky Top's scary now, honestly. We'll see.
All right, so 2 on Tennessee, 2 on Kentucky. I agree with you, Aaron, real quick, and I'm just going to say we've talked about this a lot. Kentucky would not surprise me if they win this game with their defense. However, I'm also with Tyler on this. I just do not think Kentucky can score enough points to keep up with Tennessee. Tennessee's going to score way more points.
Tennessee defense, guys. It's not that Kentucky has the.
I think they'll do enough. I'm not saying
Kentucky has a great offense.
I think they'll do enough to keep Tennessee from Kentucky from going big on them because I just don't think they have the ability to.
I'll say this, and then I'll let Dustin move on. I don't think Tennessee scores more than 28 in this game.
Surely you can't be serious.
Hey, Pittsburgh shut them down, guys. You're forgetting that. Pittsburgh took them to OT at 27-27, and Pitt has a very similar defense to Kentucky, but more of an off-brand.
I think that was just early in the season, though.
First game of the season.
No, that wasn't first game. That was like week 3.
Second or third, somewhere in there. It was early, though. That's my point.
Yeah.
All right, last game. Ohio State at Penn State.
Is it whiteout? Is it whiteout day too?
It's whiteout. It's whiteout during the day.
Whiteout at noon, boys.
That's very confusing. I'm going with Penn.
It's blinding.
Penn State. But Clay, you're my boy, dude. Penn State in this one, dude.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I think Ohio State's overhyped and Penn State's going to show up and play.
Buckeyes by 1,000,000.
No way.
Penn State looked terrible against Michigan.
That's one game, man.
That's all I needed to see, man. That's all I needed to see.
Missouri.
This late in the season, Penn State dropped the ball, dude. That's all. They look terrible.
Michigan's front handled Penn State on both sides of the football. And it's not even close. This is why Ohio State's going to win this game big. Ohio State's better up front on both sides. Ohio State wins 3 touchdowns.
Come on, dude. Ohio State, you can't even compare Ohio State and Michigan. Polar opposites. Michigan was a terrible matchup for Penn State because they pound the ball. Michigan is not that good up front.
Penn State hasn't played anyone, man. They haven't played anybody.
They played more than Ohio State. I can tell you that.
That's not saying much.
I mean, they beat the crap out of Auburn. Auburn almost beat LSU. Auburn's been in games, man.
Are you forgetting that Penn State-Purdue game at the beginning of the season when that game was so close? Because that's what I'm looking at right now, and I'm just thinking Ohio State's way better than Purdue.
Yeah. Who's Ohio State played, though, that's better than Purdue? Nobody. Purdue would be undefeated.
They're both their schedules suck, but resume-wise, you're just incomparable. But the performance that Penn State had against Michigan was terrible.
Okay, but here's why. The front. Michigan pounds the ball. Ohio State throws it around the yard. Penn State has one of the best secondaries in the country. Your secondary can't do much when they're in one-on-one coverage and they're getting dominated up front and they're just pounding it. Against Ohio State, they're going to spread them out. They're gonna have the secondary is going to be ready. They're going to be able to compete with the wide receiving core, which means Manny Diaz is going to be able to dial up some blitzes to where they're going to sneak in and put pressure on them. I don't think it's going to be. I agree they're better up front, but I think that they're going to be able to have pressure because they can depend on their corners and their safeties in one-on-one coverage. Therefore, and I think Ohio State's defense is nowhere near Michigan's. I think that Penn State's going to score some points in this game. Close game. In Happy Valley, a whiteout, and y'all are forgetting that Penn State always plays Ohio State super close. Even when we're like, Penn State's horrible, the game is close.
Yeah.
But you don't think that Ohio State knows how Michigan beat Penn State? They're going to run the ball.
But
They're good at
but they
running the
don't.
ball.
But they don't have the team to do it though, bro. You can't change your DNA in a week.
I'm not saying
They don't
they're
have
one
that front.
they're not one-dimensional when it comes to their offense. So they can run offense however they want to. I think that is the most complete offensive team
Against
with the
Toledo.
exception of
Yeah,
Tennessee. I'm
Against
just saying-
Toledo.
Toledo is
yeah.
elite. Okay, don't you disrespect Toledo
I mean,
like that.
yeah, against horrible teams, their offense is amazing.
All right.
So
well,
I
that's
guess. Quick question though. So if
Sure.
Ohio State does come out and beat Penn State, let's just say it is a close game. Do you then say that they deserve top 4?
No,
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
in order for Ohio State to maintain the status that they're in right now, they're going to have to beat Penn State big, and I think they will.
exactly,
That's
and
where
they
I'm-
will.
That's right. That's why
They won't.
Could I be wrong?
no, they
Yes.
won't, guys. Last year, Ohio State outmatched Penn State way more than this year. Freaking Penn State had like 10 starters injured. Go look at the score from last year's game.
Yeah, no.
I'm telling you, man.
I just don't. I don't know if.
And it was
I
at
don't
Ohio
know.
State.
I don't know if this Ohio State team is the same team as last year though.
They're not.
Neither is Penn State. Last
They're
year,
not
Penn
either.
State went 7-6.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
They were riddled by injuries last year.
That's my
Penn State was
point.
a lot better than what they showed last year. And I'm giving you credit, Aaron, right now. But I look at it on paper. I look at it. I know they haven't played anyone, and I don't think Penn State really has either. I just think Ohio State is way more impressive than Penn State is right now, and that's what I'm basing this decision off of.
That's fair. I mean, we'll see. I mean, yeah. I remember whenever I wrestled JV people and I dominated them, I looked super good. But when I went up against real competition, it changed things, man. That's going to happen this weekend against when Ohio State plays. I'm just saying, you can beat
Hey,
nobody when you're
Hey,
good.
listen, I'm
I
all
think
for
when
it
it comes
happening.
down to go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
No, I said I think at the end of the day, at the end of Saturday, Ohio State and Tennessee are going to be very humble.
Ooh.
I love it.
I'm all for
Me
it
and
because
Clay needs to come on every week.
it creates chaos, and I'm all for chaos.
Me too. Absolutely. So, guys, do we have a super dog pick this week? I've got one if nobody else does.
Go for it.
I mean,
I've got
Penn State.
Penn State. Yeah, I figured that was yours. Clay, you got one? It's anybody you think a major upset? You did say Kentucky over Tennessee. I think that
He said Florida over Georgia. So I mean,
he said Penn
No,
State over Ohio State
No,
too.
I'm pulling Penn State over Ohio. So Ohio State.
Okay.
That's fine.
Ohio, dude. Just leave it at Ohio.
Yeah, I know, right? Ohio, yeah.
Well, I had trouble picking an upset this week, so I'm taking San Diego State over Fresno State.
Well, what's the spread on that game?
8 points. Fresno
I
State's a
have
favorite.
no idea, dude.
Fresno State's 3-4, and San Diego State's 4-3. I'm like, why would you not take San Diego State in the points on that? So
Yeah.
that's what I found.
I don't really have one this week. I didn't really go. The spreads are really close this week. It's not a
Penn
really
State,
Really close.
Tyler. Just do it, bro. Come on.
Can't do it.
You're gonna feel good when you make the
I'm
pick
s-
and then they do it.
I stick to my bad decisions. Okay, let me have it.
Me too, brother. That's what gets me in trouble.
I rode FSU for so long that they've died. So
Well,
got the-
guys, does anyone have anything to say in closing before we finish out?
I do. I just want to say I really appreciate it, guys. Let me come on today. I love your show, man. I got my wife watching it now. Like we were cracking up about the bet, and we were sitting there looking at cheerleading outfits. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do that to you, Aaron.
No, please
I
do.
respect you a little bit too much.
I'd wear it.
Well,
I
you know
put-
I'll do
I
it
put-
though.
In all honesty, I put Clay up to the cheerleading outfit. I sent him a text message. I'm like, this is what Aaron needs.
Yeah, he did.
Uh,
That was all Dustin's idea. But no, man, I do appreciate you guys letting me on and just being a part of this. That was awesome. So thanks, guys.
yeah, man. Anytime.
Anytime,
we're
it was
glad
fun,
you're-
man.
Well, anyway, guys, it was a good week, and I look forward to watching Kentucky beat Tennessee and Penn State beat Ohio State. It's going to be a good week of football. But yeah, so I mean, y'all got any final thoughts?
Yeah, go Ohio State.
I'm not
Dude, I'm
saying
gonna
that.
record that and just play it over and over again and act like this dude's an Ohio State fan. Go Dogs is the way
God,
to
I can't
finish
stand
this one
Ohio
out.
State, man. I can't stand them.
All right, guys.
See y'all next week.
See you next week.